In 1972, Elvis's plane was grounded by a snowstorm. He waited 8 hours in a small airport where nobody recognized him. A bored 8-year-old boy named Billy said, "I'm bored." Elvis taught him guitar. 30 years later, Billy became a famous guitarist and said, "Elvis gave me my first lesson." This is the story of how 1 hour can change a lifetime. It was December 1972. Elvis was flying from Memphis to Chicago for a Christmas charity concert. The weather forecast had warned of snow, but Elvis's pilot thought they could beat the storm. They couldn't. Halfway to Chicago, the snowstorm intensified. Visibility dropped to 0. The pilot made the call to land at the nearest airport, a small regional facility in southern Illinois called Marion Municipal Airport. It wasn't equipped for celebrity arrivals or large aircraft, but it had a runway, and that's all that mattered. They landed at 2 p.m. in blinding snow. The pilot's assessment was grim. "We're grounded until this clears. Could be an hour, could be 8 hours, no way to know." Elvis and his small crew, just Joe Esposito and one backup singer who'd come along for the ride, made their way into the tiny airport terminal. It was the kind of place that had maybe 5 flights a day in good weather. Today, it had none scheduled and now one unscheduled landing. The terminal was small, one main waiting area with plastic chairs, a snack counter that was closed, 2 bathrooms, and harsh overhead lights that made everything look slightly depressing. There were about 15 other people stranded there, passengers from a flight that had been canceled, airport staff, and a family of 4 that had been waiting to pick someone up. Elvis wore a winter coat, a scarf wrapped around his face, and sunglasses despite being indoors. To the other stranded passengers, he was just another unlucky traveler stuck in a snowstorm. Nobody recognized him. And for the first time in almost 20 years, Elvis could just be a person waiting for weather to clear. Elvis found a chair in the corner, away from the main cluster of people. He pulled out a magazine from his bag, tried to read, but was too restless. Joe sat nearby, also restless, occasionally getting up to check with airport staff about the storm's progress. About an hour into the wait, a small boy, maybe 8 years old, approached Elvis's corner. He had a bored, frustrated energy that only children stuck somewhere can have. He flopped dramatically into the chair next to Elvis. "I'm so bored," the boy announced to no one in particular. Elvis looked up from his magazine. "Yeah, me too. We've been here forever. Mom says we might be here all night. There's nothing to do, no TV, no games, nothing." "That does sound boring," Elvis agreed. "I'm Billy," the boy said, apparently deciding the stranger was worth talking to. I'm EJ." Elvis caught himself, using his real initials instead of his name. "What's in your case?" Billy pointed to the guitar case Elvis had brought with him. He never traveled without a guitar. "Guitar?" Billy's eyes lit up. "Can you play?" "A little bit. Will you play something? Please? I'm dying of boredom here." Elvis glanced around the terminal. Most people were reading, sleeping, or absorbed in their own waiting misery. Nobody was paying attention to the corner where he sat. "All right, but quietly. Don't want to disturb folks." Elvis opened the case and pulled out his acoustic guitar. Billy immediately scooted closer, fascinated. Elvis strummed a few chords quietly, just checking the tuning. "Whoa," Billy breathed. "That's cool." "You ever played guitar?" Elvis asked. "No, but I always wanted to. My mom says lessons are too expensive." Elvis looked at this kid, scruffy hair, worn clothes, wide eyes full of genuine interest, and made a decision. "You want me to teach you something?" "Really? You do that?" "We got nothing but time. Might as well use it for something good." For the next hour, Elvis gave Billy his first guitar lesson. He started with the basics: how to hold the guitar, how to position your fingers, the names of the strings. E-A-D-G-B-E, Elvis said. "That's the string names, low to high. You remember that by making up a phrase." I learned, "Every adult dog gets biscuits eventually." You can make up your own. Billy repeated the string names, concentrating hard. Elvis showed him how to make a simple C chord, positioning Billy's small fingers on the right frets. "Now strum, gentle, like you're petting a cat, not hitting it." Billy strummed. The sound was muddy, fingers not pressing hard enough, but it was a chord. Sort of. "I did it," Billy said, thrilled. "You did. Now do it again. And again. The secret to guitar is repetition. Your fingers need to remember where to go without you thinking about it." Billy practiced the C chord over and over, tongue sticking out in concentration. Elvis showed him G and D next, the basic chords that would let Billy play hundreds of songs if he kept practicing. "Music isn't about being perfect," Elvis told him. "It's about expressing something. Even with 3 chords and a simple strum, you can make people feel something. That's the magic." Billy's mother eventually wandered over, curious about what her son was doing. She saw him with the guitar, this stranger teaching him, and started to intervene. "Billy, don't bother that man. He's teaching me guitar, Mom. Look." Billy demonstrated his C chord, still messy, but recognizably a chord. The woman looked at Elvis with gratitude. "That's very kind of you. He's been driving me crazy with boredom." "It's no trouble," Elvis said. "He's a good student. Naturally you're for it." Over the next several hours, as the storm continued and the wait stretched on, Elvis and Billy worked through basic chords, simple strumming patterns, and the fundamental truth that music is about feeling, not perfection. Other stranded passengers started paying attention. A few gathered around to watch, to listen to Elvis playing quietly and teaching this kid the basics of guitar. If anyone recognized Elvis, and a couple of the adults seemed to look at him with uncertainty, like they almost knew, nobody said anything. They just watched this impromptu lesson happening in an airport during a snowstorm. "Why are you being so nice?" Billy asked at one point. "Teaching me all this?" "Because somebody taught me once," Elvis said. "When I was about your age, a man named Silas taught me my first guitar chords, changed my whole life. Maybe I'm paying that forward." "Do you play professionally?" Billy asked with a child's innocent directness. "I do," Elvis said carefully. "It's my job." "Are you famous?" "Some people know my music." "Cool. Maybe someday I'll be famous too, and I'll tell people you taught me in an airport during a snowstorm." Elvis smiled. "Maybe you will." At 10 p.m., the storm finally cleared enough for flights to resume. Elvis's pilot gave the all clear for takeoff. Billy's family got word that the roads were passable and they could drive home. Before they left, Elvis did something impulsive. He pulled a piece of paper from his bag, wrote down some basic chord progressions and practice exercises, and handed it to Billy. "Keep practicing those 3 chords, every day if you can. And remember, music is about feeling. Don't let anyone tell you you're doing it wrong if it feels right." "Thank you, Mr. E.J., Billy said, clutching the paper like treasure. "You're welcome, Billy. Keep playing." Billy's mother pulled Elvis aside briefly. "I don't know who you are," she said quietly, "but I think maybe I do. Either way, thank you. We can't afford guitar lessons. What you gave him tonight, that matters." "He's got a gift," Elvis said. "Make sure he uses it." Elvis and his crew boarded the plane. As they taxied for takeoff, Elvis looked out the window at the small terminal, at Billy and his family walking to their car, at this ordinary moment that might become extraordinary. "That was a good thing you did," Joe said. "Maybe he'll remember it," Elvis said. "Maybe it'll matter." "It'll matter," Joe said with certainty. "You just gave that kid his future. He doesn't know it yet, but he will." 30 years passed. Billy Thompson grew up in southern Illinois, practicing those 3 chords Elvis taught him, building on that foundation. He became a session musician in Nashville, then a touring guitarist for major country acts, then a respected guitarist known for his technical skill and emotional playing. In 2002, Billy was being interviewed for a guitar magazine. The interviewer asked about his influences, about how he got started. "My first guitar lesson," Billy said, "was from Elvis Presley in an airport during a snowstorm in 1972. I was 8 years old, bored out of my mind. This guy, I knew him as E.J., taught me C, G, and D chords, taught me that music is about feeling, not perfection. That hour changed my entire life." The interviewer was skeptical. "Elvis Presley gave you a guitar lesson in an airport?" "His plane was grounded. Nobody recognized him. I was a bored kid who asked him to play. He spent hours teaching me basics." I didn't fully realize it was him until years later when I saw him on TV and recognized his voice, his hands, the way he explained things. By then he was gone, and I never got to thank him properly. Billy continued. Everything I became as a guitarist traces back to that night, the patience he showed, the generosity of spending hours with a stranger's kid, the wisdom about music being feeling first, technique second. That's the foundation my entire career is built on. The magazine article went viral among musicians. Other artists started sharing stories of Elvis's casual teaching moments, his willingness to help aspiring musicians, his belief that music was meant to be shared and passed on. The Elvis guitar lesson story is powerful, said famous guitarist Eric Clapton, because it shows his understanding that music is a gift we're supposed to give away. He could have ignored that kid. Instead, he invested hours in teaching him. That's not ego, that's service. Billy Thompson framed the original chord chart Elvis had written for him, a piece of airport paper with 3-chord diagrams, and the note, "Practice daily, music is feeling, EJ." That paper now hangs in the Country Music Hall of Fame, part of an exhibit about mentorship in music. The placard reads, Billy Thompson's first lesson, taught by Elvis Presley in Marion Municipal Airport during a snowstorm, December 1972. 1 hour of teaching created a lifetime of music. Marion Municipal Airport, now closed and converted to other use, has a small historical marker. On December 1972, Elvis Presley was stranded here during a snowstorm. While waiting, he taught an 8-year-old boy named Billy Thompson his first guitar lesson. That boy became a professional guitarist who has taught hundreds of students, each carrying forward the lesson Elvis shared. Music is about feeling, not perfection. Billy Thompson is now in his 60s. He still teaches guitar, still passes on what Elvis taught him. Every student I teach, Billy says, gets the same first lesson Elvis gave me. C, G, and D chords, the foundation of thousands of songs, and I tell them what Elvis told me. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about expressing something. Even with 3 chords, you can make people feel. Billy calculated once that he's taught over 800 students in his career. Each one learned the Elvis lesson first, and many of them teach now too, passing it forward again. That's over 800 musicians who trace their lineage back to an hour in an airport with Elvis, Billy said, and their students make it thousands, all because Elvis chose to spend a boring afternoon teaching a bored kid something useful. That's legacy. Not the concerts or the records, those matter too. But this kind of legacy, where one lesson spreads through generations, that's immortality. The story of the Snowstorm lesson became a parable in music education circles. Be like Elvis, teachers would say. See opportunity in downtime, recognize potential in unlikely places, give generously of your knowledge because you never know whose life you're changing. Parents of aspiring musicians would tell their children, Elvis Presley taught a random kid in an airport. If he had time for that, then practice is never wasted. Learning is never beneath anyone. And guitar students, when they got frustrated with basic chords, would hear, Elvis started Billy Thompson with C, G, and D, those 3 chords. That's all Billy knew from Elvis, but he practiced them until his fingers bled. And now he's famous. Start where you are. Build from there. Billy Thompson's final wish, stated in his will, is to be buried with that piece of paper, the chord chart Elvis wrote. I want to take it with me, Billy explained, so I can show Elvis if I see him. Show him what became of that hour. Show him the thousands of musicians that exist because he wasn't too important to teach a bored kid. Show him that his generosity is still making music 50 years later. The snowstorm of December 1972 was a minor weather event, barely recorded in meteorological history. But in music history, it's remembered as the storm that stranded Elvis long enough to plant a seed. 1 lesson, 1 hour, 3 chords, and a simple truth about music being feeling. From that seed grew a guitarist. From that guitarist grew hundreds more. From them, thousands, all carrying Elvis's lesson forward into a future he never saw but helped create. 1 hour in an airport, One bored kid, one generous teacher, and a legacy that proves the most important thing we can do is share what we know with someone who needs to learn it. Elvis's records will last forever. But Billy Thompson's lesson and the thousands of musicians it created, that's a different kind of forever. That's living legacy. That's music that never stops because it keeps getting passed on, person to person, generation to generation. All because Elvis said yes when a kid asked him to play. All because he chose to teach instead of just endure. All because he understood that music is meant to be shared and knowledge is meant to be given away. The snowstorm stranded Elvis for 8 hours, but one of those hours changed music history forever, not with a performance, with a lesson, with patience, with generosity, with the simple act of teaching C, G, and D to a kid who needed something to do. That's how legacies are really built, not with grand gestures, with small kindnesses that compound across time. Elvis knew that, Billy Thompson proved it, and thousands of musicians now carry it forward, one three-chord lesson at a time. If this story of teaching, generosity, and legacy through learning moved you, subscribe and share it. Who taught you something that changed your life? Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the lessons that last forever.